Howdy folks, welcome to the shop. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about all the tools in the leathercraft. Now there's a ton out there, they're all nice and shiny, but really what do you actually need if you just wanted to make a knife sheath or a wallet? So let's run through kind of the basics and the things that are nice to have if you want to stay in this and actually keep doing more projects. So the most basic of it is just a tape measure. It's really hard to make anything if you don't know what size you need it. So, basically you want a tape measure, a little scale. I use this all the time, and even just a framing square, L square. The other measuring things that'll come into play is like a set of dividers. Now these are really nice because you can use these to mark the width for your stitching line, and I also use these for marking out my stitching hole distance, and you can make it just any custom distance you want, which is really handy. You got a similar thing with this leather tool. It basically is a stitch groover, so it'll actually cut a stitch line with a blade in it, or it'll just mark the line for a guide for pricking irons or whatever you want to mark out your stitch spacing. Then from measuring stuff, you go to marking. So you really need a scratch awl to transfer all of your patterns onto the leather, and you also use these all the time for just making holes bigger, punching out things. And the real deal is having a diamond awl. Now this is one specific leather tool that I'd recommend picking up probably first, because it's really hard making good looking stitches if you don't have a nice diamond awl. Now you can use pricking irons. I'm not a fan of those at all. I think it's a lot more versatile if you can have this tool that'll do everything, versus pricking irons only going to give you one distance, and if you're doing curved or complex objects, it's just not going to work. If you're doing flat wallets and belts, it'll get you by if you really want to, but I'd say don't go for those. Get an awl and learn how to do it the old-fashioned traditional saddle stitch. And there's different handles too. You can get some that are interchangeable to have this collet, so you can get different blades and whatnot. Another easy household item to get is just a pencil. You're going to need this for marking all kinds of stuff on leather. Preferably if you can get a pencil that has a softer lead, so like there's all the way up to 8B, I believe, is the softest you can find easily. That'll be great because that'll impart the lead a lot easier on the leather rather than just your traditional HB house pencil. And then aside from that, another household thing is a box cutter. You think you need a specialty head knife or some fancy leather knife, but really a box cutter is going to do 95% of what you need. And the more specialty stuff actually, like skiving down edges, a wood chisel works fantastic for that. So this is a nice old one, so it has a bit better steel with it. And it's great for skiving down edges, or if you just gotta cut a strap blank. So don't underestimate the tools you can find at a hardware store too. Now a little specialty is hammers. So you probably haven't seen one of these. This is a leather maul, and you have a maul rather than a mallet, which is, the shape of this but soft. This is better because you don't end up twisting it. It's always basically on the mark that you need. So that's why traditionally we use this. And then there's also like a pattern hammer, and you use this for tapping down stitches and just wet molding, all kinds of stuff really. But you can get away with like here's just an old small ball peen hammer, and what you're looking for is just a face that is rounded and smooth, so it's not going to leave any indentions on your leather. And that's really handy to have. Now one specialty tool for sure is edge burnishers. So you use these to knock off the corners on leather and make it easier for slicking it and making it glassy smooth. Now you don't have to have one of these if you're just starting out. You can get by with just sanding it down with some sandpaper, but if you're going to do a couple projects, you probably want to invest in one of these for your most common size. They have all different sizes, so you really got to get one for your most specific needs. And then you have edge slickers, which you use these with some water to slick down the edge and get that nice glassy smooth finish. So there's tons of these out there. They're pretty cheap and inexpensive, but in a pinch you can even use just like tool handles if it's got a good finish and smooth. That's pretty much all you need. And more specifically, you can also get like a bone folder here. This is really handy for stretching out pockets from gluing and flattening out things in general, slicking down the surface of leather. Just generally handy to have. And then you also got like punches, like here's a little belt hole punch and different round punches. Use those all the time for your belt loops and bag punches, and there's round end punches, so there's a whole variety there I won't get into on this video. And then lastly, you have a strap cutter. Now this is real specialty. only used if you're making straps. So unless you're doing a lot of straps, not really justifiable getting it as your first starting tool, but down the road, you're going to need one probably. And then, the specialty nice knives and everything, you don't really have to have. The only reason really to upgrade and get a nice knife like this one is because of the steel. This steel, you can actually work for a couple hours without having to sharpen it or break off blades with, a little box cutter like this. I still use this to today, but, it gets old having to go through blades like nobody's business. So having good steel that you can sharpen and hold an edge is paramount in this trade. So that's kind of a brief overview of all the tools you're going to need to get started. If I had to go and get only 2 tools to do one project today, pretty much it'd be a scratch awl and needles and thread. Because with that, you can really do all you need. Now, it's going to be tricky marking out stitch spacing, but you can get guides online, or I'll have a video soon on how to do that with a DIY little stitch spacer. But really, a diamond awl and just a regular scratch awl, like that's going to be really hard to do with any other tool around the house. Now, cutting the leather, everyone can find a box cutter at the hardware store, so that's pretty easy. And pencils and rulers is easy to find. So big thing that you might want to think of before your first project is just seeing about a good awl and maybe figuring out what you want for stitch spacing. But other than that, you add on as you need pretty much. So I hope that gave you some direction of what you might need and helped you out.